There's always time for time. I've got my 2 cups of stock. This is a chicken stock that I got at the store. You can make your own if you want to be really hoity-toity, but I want to just make sure this port is going to suffice for our delicious sauce. It's got a nice dark color to it. Good aroma. It smells kind of like rich, chewy, dried cherries, so it's going to go really well with that fruit. Yeah, that'll be fine. I'm really glad I checked. We're starting to get a little bit of brown on the edges of our onion. We want to make sure that the onions get a little translucent, and they'll start to release a little sugar. And that can take as long as 3 to 5 minutes, depending on the heat that you've got. We're going to add all of our liquids that we reserved from the giblets and the wingtips that we removed. We're going to add our 2 cups of chicken stock. We're going to add 1 cup of our ruby port. We'll bring it back to a boil. We're going to strain it after about 30 minutes. Then we'll add our cherries and set it off to the side so that right before we sit down, we can bring it back to a boil and it'll be ready to serve. Yum, yum. Roast duck is great if you're having a summer picnic. A little bit of duck goes a long way, so we've got a 5.5 pound duck today. That'll easily feed 4 people, especially since we're having more food with it. Duck also, a lot of people think it's kind of exotic and hard to cook because they've never dealt with it before, but it's surprisingly easy once you know a few things about it. Duck is just sort of a simple, common food. I remember when we were lucky enough to go to Paris, one of the things that you order in a restaurant is a duck leg with French fries and a little glass of wine. Serve it with a green salad, and that's just considered a simple, average, everyday lunch. And I think we had that before we went to the Louvre and saw the Mona Lisa. So, a roast duck for me has a lot of wonderful associations, not the least of which is France. Today we're going to have a little bit of France in our very kitchen. This is one of your best friends in the whole world. It's a potato. It's a little waxy potato. These are just wonderful. They've got great flavor just by themselves. Today we're going to fry them, but we're going to cook them in 2 stages. The first step, they're going to go into the oven with the duck for about 30-35 minutes, and they won't be cooked at the end of that time. After that, we're going to fry them in duck fat, and they're going to be all crispy and delicious. Now, if you're trying this at home, don't worry if you don't have duck fat. You can use olive oil or any other kind of cooking oil, and it will work out just fine. So first, let's cut up our potato. I'm not going to keep the ends. So we're cutting these into about 1/4 inch slices. We're going to be arranging these on a cookie sheet in order for them to go into the oven. We're going to try to keep them in a single layer. That way the heat will get to them a little more evenly than if they were kind of piled up. I'm going to put them in some cold, salted water while we're waiting to put them in the oven. That way they won't discolor, because you don't want your potatoes to turn all ooky. No, you don't. And we're going to want to do that second phase of the cooking as close to when we sit down as possible so that the potatoes stay hot and crispy the whole time. You want to be careful not to drag the sharp end of your knife across the cutting board. You don't want it, this is the sharp end, you don't want it to go across your board. If you have to move anything out of the way, flip your knife over, sharp end, flip it over, and use the back side of the knife to clear your board. That way, your blade stays sharp. I'm resisting the urge to open the door to the oven. This is one thing that beginning cooks can sometimes get a little jumpy about. they always want to open the oven and have a look, and that I respect that. Yes, it's really curious. You want to know what's going on in there, but every time you open that oven door, you're dropping the temperature quite a bit in the oven, and it's going to increase your cooking time. And so refrain, be strong, trust that things will go well. So our bird's been roasting for an hour, and we're going to take it out of the oven in just a moment, and we're going to flip it the other way. It's going to be breast side up now for the rest of its cooking. And while it's in there for the next 30 minutes or so, we're going to do the first stage of cooking these potatoes. I want to try to get as much moisture off the potatoes as possible. I'm not going to be fanatical about it, but the less water we have in there, the better. We're just going to lay these out in a single layer. Any kind of waxy potato will do. You can even use the more mealy baking potatoes. Those work fine. Give them another little bit of oil. And we're going to give them a bit of salt too, because, well, salt is important. I'm not exactly sure how it works, but salt is, I think it's electrical. That you need a certain amount of salt in your mouth for your taste buds to like fire and zap and stuff. So when something's a little bit salty, you taste it even better. That's my theory, and I'm sticking with it. Be careful anytime you have an open oven door. Fire bad, or at least treacherous. We're going to try to flip this bird over onto its back. Notice there's a bit of fat in the pan. You want to be careful not to splatter it all over the place, not the least of which because it's hot, and that's a terrific way to burn yourself. Now it's breast side up. And it's going to go back into the oven. We're going to, when we get our potatoes out of the oven in 30 minutes, the duck is going to need probably another 20 to 30 minutes after that. So we'll check it at that time.